Hi everyone, I'm Manisha Natarajan. On Let's Get Real, we're looking at a crisis which is hiding actually in plain sight. We all know about it, and that's safe, affordable student housing. Now, let me tell you where college going students are staying today. First, we all know there are university hostels, but these hostels can accommodate just about 1 in every 5 students that they enroll. So, 4 of them are actually looking outside. Let's get the answers from Anshuman Magazine, Chairman and CEO, India, SEA, MEA, CBRE. We also have with us Narasimha Jayakumar, CEO of Elevate Campuses, and Mayank Pokharna, a serial entrepreneur who now runs everything co-living. Anshuman, I know that not too many people probably got the news of some students losing their lives. But for parents and students who are actually, this is the high season, June, July, for them to start a new academic year, coming to big cities, this is something which has become a challenge to find the right kind of accommodation at the right price. I'm just surprised. I read out the numbers. The gap is so much. Why hasn't more institutional capital flowed into this sector, even though India is such a big demand story?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the reasons why the institutional capital not gotten in, because the institutional capital goes number one where they can get a return, and number two where they can get an exit, and number three where there's the least brain damage to do that investment, right? So this sector, the problem is that if you a lot of the educational institutions are still under a trust or a non-profit institution. Getting land is a problem. And then there is, in this sector, there's 18% GST. Plus, just the liquidity is not there. The scale is not there. In the sense that it's a vicious circle. Like how, like you would say, how would the scale come in if there's no investment? But then to attract institutional investment, you still have to have a scale where they feel that it's worth their while to go through the entire process of investing. I think all this put together has really kept the institutional investors not, and also you're competing with the capital. So today, if you look at India, that same institutional money is going to data centers, it's going to office because GCC, what you call story, is much bigger and more exciting, and whatever else is left, there is warehousing, residential, etc. So uh, for institution, money is coming in, but it's not coming to the extent it should have, and that's why we are so far behind.
Anshuman, would you agree? Because not everyone, not all the universities have the land to give for maybe building a hostel, or maybe have hostel accommodations already available and bring in a partner like Elevate Campuses to manage and operate them professionally and in a very safe, hygienic, and the way it's supposed to be with all the safety and hygiene issues resolved. Uh, what happens to the rest of the higher education universities which probably and colleges which don't have land? Should we just completely rule out other models of just outside the campus? Globally, they do exist. I mean, student housing does exist even outside of the campuses, doesn't it?
Yeah, certainly. Before that, I just want to say, I just realized why one of the reasons why there's not so much investment coming in, because my panelists twice mentioned that this is not real estate. The fact is, it is real estate. Maybe that's the reason the money.
I did know for the wrong discussion entirely.
Because, sorry? Because the fact is, he mentioned real estate, and it's not real estate because we are servicing it. I just want to mention every real estate has a professional servicing happening, right? If you look at a hotel, you look at a school, or you look at a office, right? And there's this is an asset class, and that mindset has to change. That this is not real estate. Look at Europe, US. This is an asset class where capital institutions put money and they trade in it, right? And it's traded on a yield basis, and because of that the capital comes in. So this is really, we at CBRE has have a global and in India a education practice. We are a real estate company, right? And they're doing everything. We take education as a real estate asset, and this specifically is a real estate asset, right? So which means that, answering your question, Manisha, that you're right, land is always a problem in any real estate, be it a hotel, be it a student housing, or be it office or whatever. And a lot of the campuses, I believe there is a restriction that they cannot allocate more than 18% of their land for student housing, right? So even if they have land, there's a restriction. So when the town planners, when we do a mixed use development or any city or urban area, so when they do the master planning, they would say this is a area which is for hotels, this is an area which is for schools and colleges, this is an area for offices. Why can't there be also an area for student housing, specifically for
I
student
think.
housing? And that's
Mm,
the one of the solutions which has to be. So when we talk about smart cities, when we talk about urban development, this asset class has to go into the planner's mind, that you have to plan for it. Otherwise,
mm.
we will continue to have these fires and tragedies, and students not able to focus on studies because they're living in, like my colleague mentioned, that there's unsafe areas, there's power problem, there's transportation problem, there's safety issues. That will continue to happen. So it's really important that we look at this. One other factor, both of my panelists who are more experienced in operating student housing have not mentioned, is affordability. One of the
Exactly.
reasons in India, of course, all parents want the best, but can they pay for it? Our per capita income in India is still low. Most of the parents, in spite of a huge migration, so in major cities, almost 60% of the students are migrants, in the larger institutions, sorry, and in smaller ones, it could be 20-25%. But a lot of those parents are from small, or the students are from small towns and villages or even other places, and not from the economic strata where they can afford to pay. And I'm not saying it's expensive, but if you want to even provide basic services, it costs money. And I think that is also a hindrance, unlike in the West, where the affordability factor is not as big as in India. And I think that is one of the deterrents why we don't have a scaled up. And to your point, you mentioned that it's difficult to compete with this unorganized sector because it's much cheaper. And I'm sure a lot of the parents know that this is not the best for the children, but many times they can't afford it.
Today, if you look at it, the Anshuman talked about it, that there is no scale. And that is very true because there are very few operators today who have scaled up, and we are one of them. And today, we have more than 70,000 beds under ownership and management. And that is really gives us a track record able to engage with all universities deeply.
There needs to be an exit strategy for institutional capital to flow in. So, right regulation with right exit strategy, I think, is the way, and a lot of it has to be driven by policy. Operators can come in and kind of play with their margins, play with their operating model, do right partnerships. All of that can happen, but having the right policy framework is absolutely important for this industry to grow.
And thank you very much for joining me today. Pleasure to have you. We'll probably come back and have this discussion on closing the gap in student housing many times over because, as I said earlier, we are a very, very young country. We have a huge migration of students from smaller places to larger cities for quality education, and we simply have to make a priority. And, when students don't have a safe place to live, the dreams pay the price. And that's a cost that we as a country can't really afford. Thanks so much for joining me on Let's Get.
Thank you, Manisha. Thank you.